Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time to join us for today's webinar. As you can see from the screen, grabbing new opportunities in Hong Kong. My name is Ruben, the Chief Operating Officer of Singapore Fintech Association. But that said, today we are not the limelight, and the focus is to turn to Hong Kong as well as and organize with our co-organizer Invest Hong Kong. And the reasons people will be asking, okay, they received this many times, so Ruben, why are we doing this with Invest Hong Kong? And I just want to take this chance to call out that Hong Kong has always been one of the important markets that's been identified by our members and the people that we speak to. And really the fact that Hong Kong and Singapore are so similar in many ways, especially our regulatory, the stability, and also the market conditions. I think this really makes Hong Kong a very easy to go to market for Singapore companies. And also more importantly, Hong Kong presents itself not just only as a market, but also as an entry point, as a springboard into a larger space from the Greater Bay, just like how Singapore serves as the platform into Southeast Asia. And I think today's conversation will be even more interesting because, as we all know, that Hong Kong is also stepping out from COVID and opening up its borders and opening up its market to everyone once again. And I think today we also through Invest Hong Kong, we have lined up very interesting speakers who cover very important topics like digitalization, decarbonization, and decentralization. With these big 3 Ds in place, I think it will actually set the platform for the year 2023 and give our audience very good insight as to what to expect from Hong Kong, from the business, as a market, as well as individual businesses. And now, without further ado, let me hand it over to our moderator for today, King from Invest Hong Kong. Over to you, King.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ruben, for the background and the kind introduction, and also the great partnership over the years in bridging our two economies. So good morning, everyone, from the Singapore. So both, I guess, some old and new friends. So thank you for joining us today. I am the head of Fintech at Invest Hong Kong. My name is King Leong, and I have a great privilege today to basically play 2 roles. Now, first, I would like to use perhaps 10 minutes to quickly go over a few slides to at least set the stage about what are the Hong Kong opportunities that could be of interest to you. Second, which is the more exciting part of today, that we have 3 very distinguished, highly accomplished leaders with us, representing different segments of fintechs. That would be the bulk of the conversation to give you a better sense about different segments, opportunities in Hong Kong. So without further ado, perhaps I'll just quickly share my slides and then give you a snapshot of what the Hong Kong market is there for you. Now, to begin with, actually, we're going to update this slide very soon in the next month or so, that we have actually increased the number to 700 plus by the end of this year. So essentially, we have a pretty diverse ecosystem in Hong Kong, where you see a great representation from wealth tech to digital assets, to insurtech, regtech, and so on. And actually, 44% of the founders in Hong Kong actually came from overseas. Now, I think another way that would be a good way to understand the Hong Kong market is that as an international financial center, Hong Kong is, I think, by and large, a very good B2B fintech market. So if you are engaging in B2B solution kind of business, I think Hong Kong is a great market to look at, because at the end of the day, we have a good number of asset management firms, the banks, the insurance companies, the brokers, the securities firms, and also SMEs. But just the FIs alone, right, the financial institutions alone, just by adding up all these numbers on this page, there are like thousands of financial institutions. So therefore, this is a great market for B2B fintechs. Now, at the same time, I think for those of you who may not be following this very closely, actually considering the challenges from the COVID and everything, based on some of the latest numbers, Hong Kong is still ranked in one of the top in the world when it comes to the concentration of high net worth individuals, which is why that you still see a large number of like family offices setting up in Hong Kong, trying to tap into this enormous market. Now, at the same time, in case you are not aware, from the artsy perspective, beyond fintech, actually Hong Kong is the #2 market in the world when it comes to art auction, just behind New York. In fact, Hong Kong just surpassed London in the year 2020 as the #2 art auction market. mainly because of the high concentration of wealth, in which I think the high net worth folks, they would like to diversify the investments, where the alternative investment is a major area that they're looking at. Hence, the high interest in the art space. Now, of course, I think the GBA is something that has gathered quite a lot of interest in recent years because of the size of the market, 86 million people, 1.9 trillion GDP. So this is something that is really something that has the next 5-10 years of opportunities laid in front of us. Of course, I think we can talk more about the opportunities more specifically in case there interest from the audience. Now, from a private capital standpoint, again, we have a lot of respect that we have been observing some of the great work done in Singapore in promoting the investments, particularly in the early stage investment like seed and Series A and so forth. Now, for Hong Kong, just so you know, has always been a later stage investment when it comes to private capital. So we have a very sizable private equity space that they like to invest in the later stage. So that's why we like to position Hong Kong as a scaled-up hub. That is probably something that you can look at in case you are, let's say, 2 years out before IPO. So this is where we can offer some assistance. So just so you know, I mean, when it comes to the overall private capital across Asia Pacific, Hong Kong ranked actually number 2, just behind mainland China. So we account for 14% of all the private capital available across Asia. And this is based on a study done for us by PwC, based on source from AVCJ. Now, when it comes to public market, the Hong Kong market is just is enormous. In fact, I think based on the numbers shared with us by the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the public market, Hong Kong, is actually 10 times of liquidity compared with Singapore. Now, of course, I think these segments are different. Obviously, there are different needs for different kind of sourcing needs from different stock exchanges. But nonetheless, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is ranked number 1 in 7 of the past 12 years. So in case it's something that might be of interest to you, we are also happy to connect you with our colleagues at Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Now, I don't want to bore you with details, but then when it comes to the government funding side, we have basically a fair amount of schemes across the whole spectrum of needs, from setting up to R&D to hiring, business developments, and so forth. We have just so many schemes that it's just hard to cover within a short period of time. So again, if there's any interest, you want to understand more about it, feel free to contact either my colleague, Roy, who is based out of Singapore, or contact me. I'm easily found on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer more questions when it comes to government schemes and subsidies. I think before I go into more specifics, actually, I just want to start off with the strategy laid out by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. They basically laid out the Fintech 2025 strategy. In the interest of time, I just want to highlight the first of the 5 strategies, which is the All Banks Go Fintech. So essentially, the regulator, banking regulator, and the de facto central bank, they're highly encouraging the financial institutions, particularly predominantly the banks, to adopt more fintech solutions. So there are numerous business matching programs across the ecosystems to basically get you started to get access to these major FIs. And one of them is run by Invest Hong Kong, by our team. It's called Global Fast Track. So essentially what it is that we've been tirelessly reaching out to different corporate champions, i.e. the potential buyers of corporate fintech solutions, B2B solutions. So they consist of the payment companies, the banks, the insurance companies, asset managers, large corporates, conglomerates, and so on. So these are the ready buyers of the business solutions offered by different fintech firms. At the same time, we also reach out to different investors across the ecosystem. And actually, we have one of the representative of one of them, Sean, representing the EVG. Again, I don't want to steal thunder, but basically, there are these investors that cover the investments needs from the early stage, from seed to the basically pre-IPO. We also have some service champions, and they represent the law firms, the consulting firms. So typically for firms, particularly those that require some help and assistance when it comes to license application, they can also connect you with the professionals in the legal side. among others. There are also talent firms, digital marketing like Google, and consulting firms or market entry, advice, and so forth. Now, so this is, I don't want to go into details in the interest of time, but this is a program that we run all year round to basically offer help to make the first step easier for firms like yourself. Now, but once you come into Hong Kong through the Global Fast Track, you get access to some potential FI clients, you get some good traction, then you want to set up in Hong Kong. Then what's next? Actually, one of the programs that was launched last year by our Policy Bureau, it is the Fintech Proof of Concept Scheme. So basically, it's a scheme that provides the financial support to incentivize the FI to adopt fintech. So these are the results from last year. You can see that there's a good representation across, wealth tech, reg tech, insurtech, paytech, digital assets. So those are the major ones in which the FIs will take the subsidy from governments. I think at the end of the day, to be honest, the banks, they don't really care about the subsidies, but the subsidies are very helpful because they don't have to go through procurement, so that they can fast track the way for them to work with the fintech companies to try something out in a POC context. So this is another way to really speed up the partnership between fintechs and the FIs. So Fintech Week is coming up. It's actually going to be held during the same week of the Singapore Fintech Festival. But for us, the main conference for the Fintech Week this year will be on the first 2 days, so Monday and Tuesday, whereas the Singapore Fintech Festival will be on Wednesday through Friday. So these are just some numbers. I don't want to go in details at the moment, but the one thing I want to highlight is that the Web3 and Metaverse and NFT space is something that we put quite a lot of emphasis this year. And we are very happy that we have this great champion Animoca brands. So for those of you in Web3, you've probably heard of them. They basically jumped from, I think, less than $1 billion valuation to now 5.5 billion in a matter of 18 months. So we're very proud of them. And also, they are also a great supporter where they also invest into Web3 related companies to round out the whole end-to-end journey. As a result, besides Animoca brands and some of the portfolio companies, we also have other great firms that will be showcasing their Web3 capabilities this year. So that's why we have this experience zone at the Hong Kong Fintech Week to showcase all these new capabilities. Besides, I think some of the great other capabilities from the e-payments, the virtual banking, the virtual insurance are also some of the great stakeholders in Hong Kong we like to showcase. So there are some programs, the international delegation and also startup exhibition programs that would make it much easier for firms internationally to join the Hong Kong Fintech Week. Even if you want to join virtually, you're welcome to do so. And there are subsidies behind these two programs to make the joining fee much more affordable, particularly for the earlier stage startups. So in case you want to understand a bit more, feel free to, again, let me, Roy, know about it. So this is the site. Again, these are the contact information for myself and Roy. So these are some of the information. Just want to set the stage before we go into the discussion with our three speakers. So with that, perhaps I'll quickly change gear to the discussion today. So I just want to, again, have my warm appreciation and gratitude to our three speakers today. I just want to perhaps introduce them very quickly. We have Jason Tu, the co-founder and CEO from MuleTech. So I think many of you might have heard of MuleTech when they started out as an ESG company, but since then, they're definitely grown a lot bigger. So I would let Jason share more about the ambitious plans and also the great, exciting plans of his with you shortly. And then next we have Arnold Chen, with Airwallex, a great unicorn, a great partner of ours in Hong Kong. He's the general manager of not just Hong Kong, but also Southeast Asia, which is why now he's physically in Singapore. And last but not least, and then we have Aspen Digital, another great partner of ours. So Sean Wu, he's the head of investments, and he's also physically in Singapore at the moment. So I think this is a great time for us to share the views. Obviously, these three gentlemen have the great insights for not just the Hong Kong ecosystem, but also Singapore. Now, so with that being said, perhaps I will start with Jason. And obviously, you guys have been doing quite a lot of work when it comes to sustainability. You guys are very well known when it comes to the data aspects. But I'm sure that this is not just the whole full story. So can you share with the audience about what you see as the ESG trends in Asia, and particularly what you have done in Hong Kong, and where are the opportunities in Hong Kong? Jason, off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you, King, and I want to thank InvestHK and the Singapore Fintech Association for having me today. Just a full disclaimer: I am actually today. I'm also physically calling in from Singapore, and I'm still experiencing a little bit lingering COVID symptoms after this weekend, F1 weekend. Well, to answer your questions, King, I think. First of all, if we're talking about sustainability, if we take a step back in terms of the overall trend, why would companies, why would they implement sustainability measures? I think there are only three reasons. One could be regulatory driven. And the second of all could be investor or banking kind of a finance driven. And third of all, it could be client driven. And we have to be crystal clear that many of the firms, though sustainability is a very good thing, I think many of the firms wouldn't do it by themselves unless the regulators or the bankers and investors or their clients ask them to do so. Talking about that, then what is Hong Kong's advantage? Well, we have expanded into Singapore, and Singapore right now is our Southeast Asian headquarter right now. And why did we choose to grow up from Hong Kong? Out of the three reasons, let me analyze one by one. First of all, if we're looking at regulatory reasons, I think Singapore has made a lot of progress in the past 2 years. Back in 2019, when I first set up our company in Singapore, our Southeast Asia headquarter in Singapore, when I talked to, for example, EDB, MAS, they only have a very vague concept of what ESG or sustainability is. And I've gone through, I've sat through many consultation sessions with them. But I think Singapore has made a lot of progress from a regulatory perspective to support sustainability development. But however, having said that, there's another aspect of regulation, which is more on financial regulation. So if you look at the finance market regulation, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and the SFC has been very advanced, very far ahead of the regional competitors, even if we include Korea, Japan, and mainland China. So I think if we're talking about the first reason or the regulatory-driven reason, why would companies adopt sustainability? The financial market regulation is very important, and Hong Kong is one step ahead, and Singapore is catching up. And if we look at the second reason, banking or investors or finance driven, whether, for example, their bankers or investors would ask the companies to complete or to do certain sustainability measures or ESG reporting, or, for example, to enhance their ESG practices. If we look at that, Hong Kong, again, I think King has already shared, Hong Kong is the largest capital market or largest largest public market in Asia. So I think from that perspective, we have actually worked with a lot of investors, a lot of asset managers and asset owners, and many of them are, for example, even sovereign funds from Singapore, like GIC, to engage companies that are listed on Hong Kong Exchange. So this is a very important concept, and we've worked with Singaporean banks and global multinational banks as well to engage their loan portfolios who have been involved in, for example, in trade finance in Hong Kong. So if we're looking at the second reason, the finance-driven or investor and banker-driven reason of adoption of sustainability, Hong Kong is also a step ahead. Again, I think Singapore is also making a lot of progress, And I'll leave the third reason for later discussion. Third reason is client driven, which means the supply chain. I think for supply chain, Hong Kong and Singapore are equally, really going forward, making a lot of progress right now.
Great. Thank you so much, Jason, for helping us to tee this up. Again, for us, of course, our work at Invest Hong Kong is to promote Hong Kong. But at the same time, we actually take a very open-minded attitude. Obviously, there are some great things done in Singapore that we're also learning from. So that's why, again, their perspectives, so like the Hong Kong, Singapore, is also something that we welcome for this kind of perspective sharing. Now, so with that, I also like to pick the brains of Arnold. So I know that you've been growing the business from scratch in Hong Kong, SME business. We have done a great job, great traction. At the same time, you're also growing the business in Singapore as well. So can you share a little bit about what you've been doing on the SME front? Because I know you guys have been just going gangbusters on that front.
Sure, thanks, King. Why don't I kind of introduce a little bit about Airwallex before I kind of go into answering your question, King. So Airwallex, we started ourselves in Melbourne. Right now, we're a $5 billion fintech unicorn. We basically service companies of all sizes, and our vision and mission is to basically become the financial backbone of companies of all sizes to make sure that we could help facilitate their cross-border payments. So right now, not only we do cross-border transfers, we help companies to issue borderless multi-currency cards, but we also have a multi-currency payment gateways and other software products such as expense management. Right now, we have around 1,200 people, employees, and over basically 19 different international offices. So Hong Kong and Singapore are both very important hubs for us. I myself am from Hong Kong. I started off in Airwallex Hong Kong, kind of growing the business in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong was very important. We picked Hong Kong to start a kind of commercial business there is because like Hong Kong has a huge SME base. We have 300,000 SMEs in Hong Kong, and a lot of them are engaged in cross-border trade and businesses. And that's why we find that Hong Kong is a very sweet spot for us in terms of a lot of businesses need to pay overseas for their suppliers. They have to basically source from overseas. And a growing number of them start to sell to overseas as well. So a lot of their customers are actually from overseas as well. So like getting payments from their customers and paying their suppliers have always been paying for these like Hong Kong businesses. And that's why I joined Airwallex in late 2020, and we started to invest a lot in the Hong Kong commercial market, actually beginning from last year. And we do customer acquisition through multiple channels, including a lot of the partners in Hong Kong, including a lot of the government agencies such as Trade Development Council. InvestExchange also helped us a lot in terms of the local, building our brand and building our presence there. We also invest a lot in marketing in Hong Kong. And we also have a strong commercial presence by having a lot of like partnership managers, strategy, and sales and operation people in Hong Kong. Last year, it has been quite phenomenal for us in Hong Kong, where we basically found a sweet spot of product market fit, where a lot of the e-commerce companies, import-export companies would like to use Airwallex to kind of pay their suppliers and receive money from their customers overseas as well. As we see that despite the fact that travel is being restricted, we see that there's a lot of need for like card payments online as well. So we've seen a lot of companies that use our SMEs that use our card to pay for like overseas expenditure, SaaS expenditure, and basically source from like international kind of platforms like eBay and Walmart. I do think Hong Kong has been quite a successful kind of global SME story for us. We have been investing quite a lot, and we will continue to invest. We are double down in terms of our commercial teams in Hong Kong, and also in terms of our product launches in Hong Kong. We're also kind of investing a lot of product launches in Hong Kong as well. Singapore, we're relatively new. We got our license late last year. We started our commercial operations here early this year, and we're seeing a lot of traction in Singapore as well. I do think these two markets are both like really fit market for Alex, because like I always mention, like Alex sweet spot is for us to serve SMEs and businesses that have a lot of cross-border needs and are willing to grow overseas. And we think that the pandemic actually accelerate that fact that a lot of the businesses are looking beyond their home market, and the nature of the businesses that look beyond their home market are actually quite similar across Hong Kong and Singapore. So the businesses that we serve across Hong Kong and Singapore are actually quite similar. That is why we found a lot of efficiency when I cover both markets at the same time, where we could deploy similar kind of go-to-market tactics. We could deploy similar offers to our partners and our clients as well. So that has been quite successful for us in both markets.
Great. Thanks so much, Arnold. I think this is great because you are really looking at both markets up close and personal. So this is great insights. So I hope that perhaps the audience, in case you have any questions for our speakers, like what Arnold had just shared, and Jason and Sean, please fire in. We are ready for more questions to make it more interactive and helpful for you. Now, I would like to quickly change gear to Sean, because obviously digital asset has been a very sexy space. Now, of course, this year has been a big roller coaster ride, but then, of course, I think the smart money are slowly accumulating, from what I heard. Now, you guys are very successful in particularly serving the high net worth. So can you share a little bit about your experience in serving high net worth customers in Hong Kong, or perhaps in our markets with the audience? Sean, off to you.
Yeah, so I guess to start, I should introduce Aspen. So what we are is we're a crypto asset management platform, really positioned to be a crypto private bank. So we only work with high net worth individuals and small institutions like single family offices, EAMs as well, to help build exposure into the Web3 asset class. So our product is actually a Web 2.0 platform. You pass our KYC process, you get an account, and then you have access to our website, which allows you to invest into underlying Web3 products. So if you think about ways to invest in crypto, in my mind, there are only 4 ways to do it. 1, there's spot trading. We have a trading engine. 2, go get yield. We're the yield provider. We explain to you how we get the yield. 3, we have smart products like quant products like a market neutral, DeFi yield farm, smart beta trackers. Those are pretty cool products, especially for our end clientele. And last but not least, the last way to make a return in crypto is to be early in projects. And that's the business that I lead, where I help our clients get exposure to early VC opportunities, be it projects, tokens, or VC fund managers as well too. So that's what Aspen does, and that's what we've done extremely well. We started in Hong Kong. That's primarily because we're the co-founders. We are all born and raised in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong being a key wealth hub is definitely a good thing as well too. So in terms of what clients want and what we've experienced trying to work with them is they want to know that the counterparty that they are dealing with is really, really good, right? So they need to make sure that whatever they invest into is real and is really legitimate, if that makes sense. So I would probably say pre-Luna, in the bull run, I guess certain clients that we had were a little loose on that requirement. But we as Aspen, as the crypto private bank, we want to make sure that what they back or what they invest in, they truly understand, if that makes sense. And then back onto the counterparty, like, look, we've gone out of our way to be as compliant with regulations as possible. So we've gone out, we have acquired a trust license, we've acquired Type 9. We're about to do the exact same thing here in Singapore as well too. So that should give clients comfort that they're dealing with a good counterparty. And then a big thing on what we do here at Aspen is we make sure the clients know what they're trying to invest into. So we have a pretty big business development team whose job, aside from trying to go out and get brand new clients, is to help upskill the existing clients as well too, right? So like, what is Bitcoin? What is blockchain? How should the ideal investment portfolio really look like? We serve as their educational partner because in my mind, for this space to really grow, people should know what they're investing into. And this speculation on things and not asking questions like, where does a euro come from? That's when things like Luna kind of occurs. So, and that kind of scares people away from investing more into the space. So That's kind of what we do, and that's what we see as a priority, trying to make sure that the clients that we have are up to speed with the current trends and topics in crypto. And then from a regulatory perspective, I actually think Hong Kong is on the right track, especially with the VASP that will come out next year. I think there's still a little bit of uncertainty, but I think that's a step in the right direction that will help a lot more people come into Web3, especially people in Hong Kong.
Great. Thank you for the color, Sean. Well, in the interest of the audience, I just want to perhaps elaborate a little bit about the last point that Sean made. First of all, Aspen is a well-respected firm in Hong Kong. It's a great partner of ours in our ecosystem. So that's why, as a matter of fact, in the past, I think within the last 2 months, I forget exact dates. So we decided that perhaps it's a good idea because before we made that VASP, the Virtual Asset Service Provider legislation effective, which is supposed to be like March of next year, we would like to make sure that we go through another round of consultation with some of the key leaders in the industry. So of course, I think Aspen being a very is a fantastic firm in the among the high net worth space. We invited one of the partners of Sean, one of the founders, Yang, to a close-on meeting, in which we have a bunch of like CEOs meeting with the head of the fintech practice at the SFC, the regulator, and also we also had the under secretary from the Financial Services Bureau. There's the Policy Bureau in Hong Kong. So naturally, we would like to listen to what the market needs. So we actually took a lot of notes, and the regulator took notice. So that's why there will be another consultation from SFC very shortly, I think within the next month or so at the latest. So that is essentially another mechanism for us to make sure that we get it right. So on the one hand, we just feel that it's important to have a sustainable growth for digital assets. So that's why we stress very much that the investor assets will be ring-fence. So that's why I think the digital asset firm, they would not be able to sort of touch the business, touch those assets when it comes to the situation where you see from the Coinbase, and other platforms, that will not happen. As a result, I mean, based on the feedback, particularly in the last 3 months from the investors, including institutional investors, they particularly see this investor protection, like 100% investor asset ring fence. This is a very great feature of the legislation and also regulatory framework. And then there are also other major features, such as, well, are we going to open up to retail? Are we going to allow the more derivatives, more leverage play? All these things will be on the table. Will be being discussed with the SFC, and they heard it. They know that these are important to the industry, so that I think the next few months will be interesting about what are the things will be included in the final form of the legislation. So I think more background to the folks on the call that might be interested about digital assets. I'd like to quickly change gear back to Jason, because obviously you guys have been around for so long. You guys are flying the ESG flag, that you are like the player, right, in ESG that people know you for. But of course, I think besides the big clients, the big multinational clients, I would imagine some of the medium-sized firms, they also may have these needs. So just now you are kind of like holding some I guess good nuggets of information about clients. So can you share with the audience about how you approach the clients, what are the needs, both the big ones and the medium-sized firms?
Hey, King, that's a very good question. We have, especially in the past 2 years, we have acquired lots and lots of SME clients, in addition to our well-established financial institutional and large corporate clients. And we're trying to tackle the SME world through a number of different ways. Now, first of all, I mentioned finance. I just mentioned previously, the finance is a very important driver in the adoption of sustainability. So we've been working with commercial banks, for example, in Hong Kong, been working with JP Morgan and HSBC, who are both of our investors, to empower their trade finance clients to adopt more sustainability measures themselves. And there are also 2 other angles that I previously said that I would share more later. Remember, I said that there are 3 primary drivers for sustainability for corporates. Otherwise, they don't have the incentive at all to do it. And the third driver I mentioned is clients. So we have been working with many multinational corporates to engage their suppliers in the region. That said, I do think that first of all, Hong Kong is a very important market. And second of all, Singapore is just equally important. We've been working, for example, with many multinational large brands who have both their supply chain set up in China and also their supply chain set up in Southeast Asia. These 2 are indispensable parts of many global large companies' supply chain right now. And many of these quote unquote their clients in Europe, for example, would ask us to help them conduct due diligence and to help them help their suppliers improve their sustainability practices. And we have also been working with industry associations. That's the third angle that we're trying to engage SMEs. Because there needs a lot of the SMEs for sustainability, they still need adequate education to help them understand the benefits of, for example, not only gathering and collecting and analyzing their sustainability data, but also why do you need to report these data? So I think industry associations are also very important partners that we partner up with here in both in Hong Kong and in Singapore. So overall speaking, I would say in the SME world, I think there are huge opportunities both in Hong Kong and in Singapore. You can look at, for example, trade finance, how Hong Kong has become a trade finance hub to many of the SMEs and even large corporates, spanning the entire not only Greater Bay Area but also China, for them to help them go global, and sustainability is important. But also if we look at MNCs setting up their supply chain in Asia, both in the Greater China region and Southeast Asian region, I think Hong Kong and Singapore are also right now very important to hubs of sustainability for SMEs. And thirdly, I think we've been working with industry associations, and the industry associations these 2 regions are also quite helpful, and they have also been collaborating with us to engage SMEs. I hope that gives our audience a different angle to look at this and more transparency into the market. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Jason. In fact, I think we should catch up after this. In fact, we've been trying to facilitate more supply chain finance work. But at the end of the day, regardless whether this is like on the finance side or the ESG, compliance side, at the end of the day, the data, right, is sometimes the missing piece. So I think that's just some exciting things coming down the pipeline that I'd like to perhaps, of course, share with Jason to you offline. Now, I guess in the interest of time, I just want to quickly move back to Arnold, because again, you have the preview of both markets. And at the end of the day, the SMEs are not created equal. Because I think we had some prior conversation that, of course, I think Hong Kong has been doing like the trading, right, import export for ages. So some of these SMEs, they may not be very tech savvy, albeit they would have high volume, right, of payment needs. So you may take a bit longer, right, to convince them to use tech. I think you've done a great job to assemble some programs and so forth. Whereas in Singapore, again, I don't pretend to know Singapore market well, but I just heard from different people that you have all these like startups coming up in recent years. They may be more tech savvy, they may be younger. So can you shed some lights about how you are sort of like what was the programs that would get the SMEs more easy to come on board to Airwallex?
Sure. Thanks, King. I think for us in Hong Kong, let me talk about Hong Kong first. I can kind of talk about Hong Kong in 2 different kind of customer segments, right? Those who are actually based in Hong Kong, like Hong Kong bred kind of SMEs, and those who are kind of coming overseas to set up shops in Hong Kong. For those local SMEs, actually pre-COVID, like I do think we're not very tech savvy as a kind of SME economy. Like a lot of the payments are still in checks. Like we've seen business owners like preferring check over like online banking or other fintechs. But I remember one business owner telling me that after COVID, right, like everyone's working from home. Like my checkbook is with my secretary, and my secretary is working from home. Like how could I even pay my suppliers with my secretary working from home? Like it's going to be a huge hassle, right? So I feel like the pandemic and COVID basically pushed people to the cloud, basically encourage these business owners to rethink, do I still need to go through the traditional way of handling my money in my business? Can I explore new kind of service provider? So I do think that we have basically captured that trend, especially with the fact that we're basically a digital onboarding experiences. We don't have like any face-to-face like offline meeting, and that actually helped both the kind of local kind of SMEs and the overseas SMEs that want to set up shops in Hong Kong much easier. For instance, we help a lot of local SMEs to basically pay their overseas suppliers and set up like new accounts with Airwallex through like a entirely like digital experience. At the same time, we see another trend in local SMEs is that because of COVID, because of the hit on the economy, a lot of these like traditional import exporters, they're starting like new business kind of channels. For instance, a lot of them will go online to become e-commerce sellers. We have seen businesses, because of the consumption voucher, right, actually start to sell, like very, very traditional businesses start to set up shops online. And how do we, as a very holistic fintech uniform, help these businesses is one of the things that we're trying to sell to local SMEs. For instance, we have like a lot of like wine importers who basically use Airwallex to basically set up their e-commerce shops and to use Airwallex to install their payment gateway online and to accept credit card payments online and use us to pay their suppliers in Japan or in other parts of the world. And thirdly, I think one of the things that we've been trying to do is to basically really support SMEs locally, because we see how travel restriction, COVID kind of hit their businesses. They're doing their part to do transformation, but we as a company and we as a very important player in Hong Kong, we want to try to provide them with more support. So we work with a lot of our other channel partners in Hong Kong, other service providers in Hong Kong. We put together initiatives to help these businesses. For instance, we have launched 2 phases of what we call Hong Kong SME Initiative. Basically, we work with our partners like Google X, like Google, to basically sponsor these SMEs to use these SaaS provider to help them to do digitally transformation, at the same time to reach kind of customer segments they probably haven't reached pre-COVID. Another kind of phase that we're doing right now is basically, we know that because of the travel restriction, because of the kind of economy, a lot of them are kind of cutting costs, right? Basically, we help them to find co-working space. We work at other co-working space, and if you use Airwallex product to kind of pay your WeWork subscription through our kind of borderless card, we'll basically give you a huge cashback. So we're doing these kind of initiatives to basically work with local SMEs to basically help them transform and help them reopen and capture all the opportunities post-COVID, right? And we're seeing that with like obviously 0+3, like everyone was traveling. We're seeing more SMEs having more demand for our physical borderless card, because a lot of them are trying to go overseas to do procurement and business trip as well. So these are the things that we see in Hong Kong, and these are the things how we could basically do go-to-market in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is huge as an SME base, like I always say, like 300,000 SMEs, and there's so much potential for international businesses to set up shops in Hong Kong. So I'm still very hopeful in terms of how we could fintechs like ourselves and other B2B market, other B2B service provider to see Hong Kong as a huge B2B market.
Great. Thank you, Arnold. I guess I can't agree more. In fact, the Hong Kong SME segment has come a long way from being not very tech savvy, but thanks to your programs and all these incentives to get them basically digitally transformed. So this is a big service to the Hong Kong society too. So thanks for that. I guess in interest of time, perhaps I would like to go to Sean to help us sort of close the discussion, perhaps leave some time for the guests to ask questions, if there's any. Now, so Sean, obviously you guys have been doing quite well already with the high net worth. But obviously, the whole Luna and a number of other events, the Celsius and the Three Arrows are scaring off people. So how do you kind of like restore their faith in this new asset class?
Well, I think it actually draws back to the points I made earlier. Sort of, I feel like if there is more regulatory clarity, because I feel like if the institutions truly come, that's a really good sign, right? So there's a bit of that. I think too, again, I feel like especially investors that don't know crypto that well, they have to take the time, put in the work, and actually learn what the use cases are and why they think the investment's a kind of attractive thing. And again, granted that I work at Aspen, but that's kind of what we specialize in. So, if you ever need help, do come out to do come out and talk to us. And then last but not least, with respect to Hong Kong itself as well too, I actually feel, and this is my own personal view, that Hong Kong at one point had a chance to be a vibrant crypto hub, right? And I feel like maybe the last year and a half, 2 years, that it's not the case because a lot of people have left. Like good branded crypto players were started in Hong Kong, but they all slowly left, right? And I think I would chalk that up to a mix of regulatory uncertainty, which is kind of being addressed now. Granted that it's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. But it's also the pandemic, right? Like no one wants to quarantine. So I think that if that, especially the quarantine policies becoming more clear and stable, that can sort of prevent the brain drain from leaving Hong Kong. And look, I think the reality is Hong Kong is a key hub for the realm of finance, right? And that, to a certain extent, kind of what crypto is as well too, right? So as long as we can prevent that, we can work on trying to make this place a crypto hub again, and I think it can be. I think the government is doing the right thing with trying to make things clear from a regulatory perspective, but the end clients and the investors, they also need to play their role too, right? They can't just quote unquote ape into deals, right? They have to know what they're doing. So they need to take the time. They need to learn what blockchain is, what the use cases are, and what a respective investment is actually really trying to do. And that's why we at Aspen, we exist, right? To help these clients make great investments. So, yeah.
Right. Well, again, as I said, we welcome more candid discussion. So we are definitely facing head-on about some of the challenges that Hong Kong faced. Naturally, of course, I mean, for me, being with Invest Hong Kong, sometimes it's not a good feeling to see that some good names moving to other jurisdictions, like sunny Bahamas, for example. Nonetheless, when we look at just the kind of challenges that we face, I guess, as Sean kindly pointed out, we are addressing it. Now, of course, it's not just Invest Hong Kong, but also our partners in Hong Kong Inc. So, for example, we have run numerous sessions where we invited SFC, the regulator of digital assets, in which I personally requested, the head of Fintech and also the director of licensing, Elizabeth, to basically speak it out loud and say, okay, can you just tell the outside world about the different of regulatory regime of Hong Kong versus mainland China? So naturally, because of the one country, two systems, then numerous times, Elizabeth of SFC came out and said, okay, look, yes, we respect that, of course, Hong Kong is part of China, but at the same time, we have to really recognize, the whole setup. I mean, there's a reason why after, 25 years, that mainland China still keeps the one country, two systems formula, if you will, because it serves the needs of the country. That Hong Kong is basically a sandbox at the end of the day, right? So you do things that you don't do inside mainland. So therefore, numerous times, the regulator came out in the past year and say, look, yes, China banned crypto, but Hong Kong basically with the regulation makes the crypto business legal. As long as the operators of the business basically abide by the guidelines from the regulator. So SFC makes it very clear. This is a as clear as it gets that it's legal to do digital asset business in Hong Kong, and they welcome that. Now, of course, we have to do more of this so that the broader market and community understand the stance. The other thing that the market typically have some misconception is, Hong Kong is not welcoming the retail. Well, but actually, I think Singapore too. Singapore also have decided that they want to make it professional investors only. But at the same time, is that really the end state? The answer is no. Because if you talk to the regulator, SFC again, they are actually at the moment, if you talk to them over the past few months, they are really having this open-minded mindsets and also attitude towards offering the digital assets to the retail space. But how are we going to protect the investors is something they're under discussion with the business community. So my point is that the regulator is actually quite open-minded. It's just that I think we just need more conversations like the private meetings that we have been hosting, so that they understand the needs of the market, and by then they will act accordingly. So lastly, I just want to comment a little bit about the quarantine comments before we run out of time. So obviously, this is something on the mind of a lot of people, particularly those who've been doing business in Hong Kong. And of course, this is not convenient and it's sometimes painful. But then at the end of the day, we are seeing the change, right? Definitely, we are seeing the gradual relaxation of these kind of measures. Now, is this going to go back? Now, no one can say for sure, but then the senior leadership in Hong Kong governments, they heard it loud and clear. Now, I think just Invest Hong Kong alone, we're basically required to write like weekly reports, reflecting all the market feedback we got from private sector. And these reports have been sent to the very high of the leadership within Hong Kong governments, so they're fully aware of the feedback from the private sector. At the same time, we also got the chambers, also the different consulates, also helping us to share their views from different business groups. So in the Hong Kong governments, the sentiment is that it's loud and clear about what the needs from the private sector, and they've been working within some constraints. They've been trying to solve those constraints to open up the economy as much as they can. So right now we are definitely seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think if we have a way, basically proposed by even the legislators, that we're going to be from 0+3 to 0+0. Right. So again, we still have been optimistic about the developments, and hopefully in the next few months, let's say by Q1 next year, when we start the new year, then I think it's business as usual in Hong Kong. So this is what we are looking at. Now, so with that, I believe that we are cutting pretty close to the time that we allocated. So I just want to thank our three speakers, Jason, Arnold, and Sean. So I need to buy you guys a drink when you guys are back to Hong Kong, and we should have parties. In fact, we are running a bunch of parties in Hong Kong too during Hong Kong Fintech Week. So we will invite you to those parties as well. Now, I want to go back to the host and see if there's anything the host would like to say a few words for us to close the session today. So Ruben, back to you.
Ruben is currently away.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's it for now.
Great. So again, with that, I just want to I don't see any questions yet. But again, this session is recorded, and then we will do also the digital marketing so that the broader community in Singapore can look at the insights shared by the three speakers today. So again, a big thank you to Jason, Arnold, and Sean to share time with us today and share your insights with the audience and our friends in Singapore. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. All right. Take care. Thank you.